The dark truth about the chocolate industry. Chocolate is a beloved treat worldwide, cherished for its rich flavors and comforting sweetness. But behind each bar lies a story that's anything but sweet. From child labor to environmental destruction, the chocolate industry has dark secrets that most people are unaware of. Today, we're diving into the bitter truth about where our chocolate really comes from and the people who pay the price for our indulgence.
Wow!
The origins and global demand for chocolate. Chocolate begins with the cacao bean, grown predominantly in West Africa, specifically in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. Together, these two countries produce about 60 to 70% of the world's cocoa, which is the primary ingredient in chocolate. Cocoa beans require a specific tropical climate, which makes West Africa ideal for growing. However, as global demand for chocolate has surged over the years, so has the pressure on these cocoa-producing regions. What was once a luxury good has become an everyday staple, and as more people consume chocolate, the demands on farmers have increased significantly. The global chocolate market is estimated to be worth over $100 billion, with major companies like Nestlé, Mars, Hershey, and Ferrero controlling much of the industry. These companies rely heavily on cocoa from West Africa to produce their chocolate. But this dependence on cheap cocoa has led to numerous human rights abuses and environmental issues that have gone largely unnoticed by the average consumer. Child labor and exploitation. One of the darkest aspects of the chocolate industry is its reliance on child labor. According to recent estimates, there are approximately 1.5 million children working in cocoa farms in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire alone. These children, some as young as 5, are forced to work under dangerous conditions, handling sharp tools like machetes, carrying heavy loads, and being exposed to harmful chemicals. Child labor in cocoa farms isn't a new issue. It's been a problem for decades. Many of these children miss out on education and basic childhood experiences, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and limiting their future prospects. Some efforts have been made to address child labor in the chocolate industry. In 2001, the Harkin-Engel Protocol was introduced. This voluntary agreement, backed by major chocolate companies, aimed to eliminate the worst forms of child labor in cocoa production. However, progress has been painfully slow. The deadline to end child labor has been postponed multiple times, and the issue remains prevalent. Some companies have made commitments to sourcing certified cocoa, but these programs have often been criticized for lacking transparency and enforcement. The reality is that while these certifications may help some farmers, they fail to protect the majority of children involved in cocoa farming. Poverty among cocoa farmers. While child labor is a significant issue, it's not the only problem facing the cocoa industry. Poverty among cocoa farmers is rampant, with many living on less than $1 a day. Despite cocoa being a multi-billion-dollar industry, the majority of cocoa farmers are trapped in a cycle of poverty. The reason for this is largely due to the pricing structure of cocoa. International cocoa prices are controlled by multinational corporations, which keep the prices low to maximize their own profits. This leaves farmers with little bargaining power and few options for increasing their income. Cocoa farmers are often forced to sell their crops at prices below the cost of production, pushing them into debt and poverty. Many farmers resort to using child labor or even forced labor to reduce costs. The exploitation of cocoa farmers highlights a fundamental injustice in the chocolate industry. The people who work the hardest and bear the brunt of the labor are the ones who benefit the least. Large chocolate companies continue to profit, while cocoa farmers struggle to make ends meet. Forced labor in cocoa farming. Another dark reality of the chocolate industry is forced labor. In some cases, adults and children are trafficked and forced to work on cocoa plantations under threats of violence or coercion. They are often brought from neighboring countries and are promised well-paying jobs, only to find themselves trapped on farms with no pay or freedom. Forced labor in cocoa farming is a human rights violation that persists despite international laws against it. Efforts to address forced labor in the cocoa industry have been hampered by the complexity of the supply chain. Cocoa beans change hands multiple times before they reach the factories of major chocolate companies, making it difficult to trace the origins of the beans. Some companies have made efforts to improve traceability, but these initiatives have had limited success. As a result, chocolate lovers worldwide may unknowingly be supporting forced labor when they purchase chocolate from certain brands. Environmental impact of cocoa farming. In addition to human rights abuses, the chocolate industry also has a significant environmental impact. To meet the ever-growing demand for chocolate, vast areas of tropical rainforest are cleared for cocoa plantations, leading to deforestation and loss of biodiversity. In Côte d'Ivoire, for example, over 80% of the forest cover has been lost, primarily due to cocoa farming. This deforestation not only contributes to climate change but also endangers wildlife, including species that are already at risk of extinction. The environmental damage caused by cocoa farming extends beyond deforestation. The use of chemical pesticides and fertilizers is common on cocoa farms, which can lead to soil degradation and water pollution. These chemicals can harm local ecosystems, including rivers and streams that are crucial for both wildlife and communities. The focus on maximizing cocoa production has led to unsustainable farming practices that have long-lasting consequences for the environment. Some cocoa-producing regions are also facing the threat of climate change. Cocoa plants are sensitive to temperature and rainfall, and as global temperatures rise, the areas suitable for cocoa farming may shrink. This could lead to further deforestation as farmers move to new areas to grow their crops. The chocolate industry's environmental footprint is a complex issue, but it's clear that more sustainable practices are needed to protect the planet. Fair trade and ethical alternatives. In recent years, there has been a growing movement among consumers to support fair trade chocolate. Fair trade certification aims to ensure that cocoa farmers are paid a fair price for their crops and that child labor and forced labor are not used. Fair trade chocolate may cost a little more, but it represents a commitment to ethical sourcing and sustainability. By choosing fair trade chocolate, consumers can help to support farmers and promote better working conditions in the cocoa industry. However, fair trade is not a perfect solution. Some critics argue that fair trade certification does not go far enough in addressing the root causes of poverty and exploitation in the cocoa industry. Certification programs have been criticized for being too focused on marketing and not transparent enough about their impact. Additionally, fair trade chocolate represents only a small fraction of the market, and many consumers are unaware of the ethical issues surrounding cocoa production. For real change to happen, there needs to be greater awareness and demand for ethical chocolate. What can consumers do? As consumers, we have the power to make a difference. By choosing chocolate from brands that prioritize ethical sourcing and sustainable practices, we can support positive change in the industry. Reading labels and looking for certifications like Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance, or UTZ can be a good starting point. However, it's essential to recognize that certifications alone do not guarantee an entirely ethical product. Doing some research on chocolate brands and their sourcing practices can help consumers make more informed choices. Raising awareness about the dark side of the chocolate industry is also crucial. The more people know about the issues of child labor, forced labor, and environmental degradation in cocoa production, the more pressure there will be on companies to improve their practices. Social media and online platforms can be powerful tools for spreading awareness and advocating for change. Supporting organizations that work to improve conditions for cocoa farmers can also make a difference. The responsibility of chocolate companies. While consumers can play a role in promoting ethical chocolate, the responsibility ultimately lies with the companies that control the industry. Major chocolate companies have the resources and influence to implement sustainable practices and ensure fair wages for cocoa farmers. However, many companies continue to prioritize profit over people and the environment. The lack of transparency and accountability in the industry has allowed abuses to persist for far too long. Some companies have taken steps to improve their sourcing practices, but these efforts are often limited in scope. To make a real impact, chocolate companies need to invest in programs that address the root causes of child labor and poverty in cocoa-producing regions. They also need to improve traceability in their supply chains and commit to purchasing cocoa from ethical sources. By taking responsibility for their impact, chocolate companies can help to create a more just and sustainable cocoa industry. The economics of chocolate pricing. One often overlooked aspect of the chocolate industry is the economic structure that keeps cocoa prices low and prevents farmers from earning a living wage. Unlike most commodities, cocoa pricing is heavily influenced by a few powerful corporations that control the majority of the market. These multinational chocolate giants like Nestlé, Mars, and Hershey benefit from economies of scale and exert considerable influence over cocoa prices on the global market. Unfortunately, this dynamic keeps cocoa prices low and forces farmers to compete against each other rather than collaborate for fairer wages. This economic structure ultimately incentivizes cost-cutting measures on the farms, which can lead to compromised labor practices, environmental harm, and the continued exploitation of impoverished communities. Understanding how market structures keep cocoa prices artificially low shines a light on why poverty and child labor are so entrenched in this industry. The rise of sustainable and traceable cocoa. In recent years, there has been a movement towards more sustainable and traceable cocoa production. Programs and certifications like Fair Trade, Rainforest Alliance, and UTZ attempt to create transparency within the cocoa supply chain, offering consumers insight into where and how their chocolate is sourced. This growing emphasis on sustainability not only aims to reduce the industry's environmental impact but also to ensure that cocoa farmers receive a fair wage. While certification programs have made strides, they're often criticized for inconsistencies in implementation and limited scalability. Some brands are now experimenting with blockchain technology to enhance traceability, making it easier for consumers to track the origins of the cocoa in their chocolate. However, widespread adoption of fully traceable and sustainable practices is still in its infancy, leaving a significant gap in transparency across much of the industry. The impact of climate change on cocoa farming. Climate change poses a severe threat to cocoa production, with rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns disrupting cocoa growing regions. Cocoa trees are highly sensitive to climate conditions, and even slight shifts in temperature and humidity can impact cocoa yields and quality. If temperatures continue to rise, the region suitable for cocoa farming will shrink significantly, pushing farmers to clear more land, which exacerbates deforestation. Many small-scale farmers lack the resources to adapt to these changes, putting their livelihoods and cocoa supplies at risk. Some companies and organizations are investing in climate-resilient cocoa varieties, but these solutions are costly and not always accessible for poorer farmers. As the chocolate industry reckons with the long-term impacts of climate change, the future availability and pricing of chocolate could be greatly affected. Conclusion: the next time you reach for a chocolate bar, remember the journey that brought it to you. Behind each bite lies a complex web of issues, from child labor and forced labor to environmental destruction and poverty. The dark truth about the chocolate industry may be hard to swallow, but awareness is the first step toward change. By choosing ethically sourced chocolate and raising awareness about these issues, we can help to support fair labor practices and protect the environment. It's time to demand a change from the chocolate industry, one that respects the people and planet behind our treats.